Is nitrogen hypoxia a humane execution or cruel and unusual punishment? Imagine being strapped down, gasping for air that offers no life. Is this justice or a descent into barbarity? We delve into the controversial case of Jessie Hoffman and Louisiana's adoption of nitrogen hypoxia as an execution method. Jessie Hoffman, convicted of the 1996 murder of Molly Elliott, is fighting for his life. Scheduled for execution on March 18, 2023, Hoffman has filed a federal lawsuit. He challenges Louisiana's use of nitrogen hypoxia, a method shrouded in secrecy and uncertainty. This case marks a critical juncture. It's Louisiana's first execution in 15 years, and it hinges on a method many deem experimental. Is this a step forward in humane executions, or a dangerous leap into the unknown? Louisiana has recently embraced nitrogen hypoxia as an alternative execution method. They join a growing number of states exploring this controversial option. But what exactly is nitrogen hypoxia, and why is it causing such a stir? Nitrogen hypoxia involves replacing oxygen with nitrogen, causing death by asphyxiation. Proponents claim it's a more humane alternative to lethal injection. However, the reality is that it's a relatively untested procedure, raising serious ethical and practical questions. Hoffman's lawsuit centers on several key arguments. He claims the state's nitrogen gas execution protocol is shrouded in secrecy. This lack of transparency, he argues, violates his constitutional rights. The lawsuit alleges that there's no publicly available information on specific procedures and safeguards. This lack of transparency creates a significant risk of unnecessary pain and suffering. Is Louisiana deliberately concealing information to avoid scrutiny? A core argument in Hoffman's case is the experimental nature of nitrogen hypoxia. He claims the method lacks sufficient scientific evidence to ensure a humane and painless execution. This raises a fundamental question. Should we be experimenting with death? The lack of established protocols is deeply concerning. It opens the door to potential complications, including prolonged suffering and a botched execution. Are we willing to risk inflicting unnecessary pain in the name of justice? Hoffman's legal team also raises concerns about the lack of qualified personnel trained in administering nitrogen hypoxia. This lack of expertise potentially increases the risk of botched executions. Who is overseeing this process, and what are their qualifications? Imagine a scenario where untrained individuals are responsible for carrying out a complex and potentially dangerous procedure. The consequences could be catastrophic. Are we sacrificing safety for the sake of expediency? Hoffman's case highlights the ongoing debate surrounding nitrogen hypoxia as an execution method. Proponents argue it's a more humane alternative to lethal injection, which has faced its own challenges and controversies. But is it truly more humane? Critics raise serious concerns about its untested nature and potential complications. They argue that it could lead to prolonged suffering and a violation of basic human rights. Is this a step forward or a step back in our pursuit of justice? The outcome of Hoffman's lawsuit could have significant implications for capital punishment in Louisiana and other states. The court's decision will likely balance the state's interest in carrying out executions and the inmate's right to a humane process. This is a delicate balance with profound consequences. The court will consider whether the execution process is constitutionally sound. This includes assessing whether it violates the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. The stakes are incredibly high. The lack of transparency surrounding Louisiana's nitrogen hypoxia protocol casts a long shadow of doubt. Without clear and publicly available information, it's impossible to assess the true risks and potential for suffering. This secrecy breeds distrust and fuels the debate. We must demand transparency and accountability from our government. The lives of those on death row are at stake, and we have a moral obligation to ensure that their executions are carried out in a humane and constitutional manner. The promise of a painless death through nitrogen hypoxia may be an illusion. The lack of scientific evidence and established protocols raises serious questions about its effectiveness and potential for complications. Are we being misled by a false sense of security? We must be wary of claims that are not supported by rigorous scientific research. The pursuit of justice should not come at the expense of basic human dignity. We must demand evidence, not empty promises. Allowing the use of untested execution methods like nitrogen hypoxia could lead down a slippery slope of experimentation. Where do we draw the line? What safeguards are in place to prevent further erosion of ethical standards? We must be vigilant in protecting the rights of all individuals, regardless of their crimes. The pursuit of justice should never justify the use of cruel and unusual punishment. We must uphold the principles of human dignity and respect for life. The secrecy surrounding Louisiana's nitrogen hypoxia protocol has a cost. It erodes public trust, fuels suspicion, and hinders meaningful debate. Transparency is essential for ensuring accountability and preventing abuse. We must demand that our government operate in the open. The public has a right to know how executions are carried out and what safeguards are in place to prevent unnecessary suffering. Secrecy breeds corruption and undermines the principles of justice. The debate over nitrogen hypoxia raises fundamental questions about our values and beliefs. What kind of society do we want to be? Do we believe in retribution at any cost? Or do we uphold the principles of human dignity and respect for life? We must engage in a thoughtful and honest conversation about capital punishment. We must consider the ethical implications of our actions and strive to create a more just and humane society. The lives of those on death row are a reflection of our own humanity. The lack of qualified personnel and established protocols increases the risk of botched executions. This could lead to prolonged suffering and a violation of the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. Are we willing to take that risk? We must ensure that all executions are carried out in a safe and humane manner. This requires adequate training, established protocols, and oversight by qualified professionals. The lives of those on death row are too important to be left to chance. The controversy surrounding nitrogen hypoxia erodes trust in the justice system. When executions are shrouded in secrecy and uncertainty, it undermines public confidence and fuels suspicion. This can have a devastating impact on the legitimacy of the legal system. We must strive to create a justice system that is fair, transparent, and accountable. This requires open communication, public scrutiny, and a commitment to upholding the principles of human dignity. Trust is essential for maintaining a just and equitable society. Ultimately, the debate over nitrogen hypoxia boils down to a question of humanity. Do we believe in treating all individuals with dignity and respect, even those who have committed terrible crimes? Or do we believe that retribution justifies the use of cruel and unusual punishment? We must choose a path that reflects our highest values and aspirations. We must strive to create a society that is just, compassionate, and humane. The lives of those on death row are a test of our commitment to these principles. This isn't just about Jessie Hoffman. It's about the kind of society we want to be. We must demand transparency and accountability from our government. Contact your elected officials, voice your concerns, and demand that they release the full nitrogen hypoxia execution protocol. Sign petitions, join advocacy groups, and spread awareness about this critical issue. The lives of those on death row are at stake, and we have a moral obligation to act. Let's ensure that justice is served with humanity, not hidden behind a veil of secrecy. Speak up, demand answers, and let your voice be heard. The time to act is now.